Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of True Story Live. And I am just really excited. I mean, more than normal. Had a really good weekend thus far, and I've really been looking forward to tonight's show. It's on a topic that I think that we all need in the world today. I think we've always needed it, but it seems like to me, just looking at what's going on in the world, we need hope. And that's tonight's topic. This one was written by our friend Marisa, and she has done an excellent job, and we're going to get started with that in just a moment. But first, we'll say hello to the rest of the panel members. My name is Cripps, and I am the host of the broadcast, but I'm also joined with three friends and panel members. And tonight, since Marisa did the write-up, we're going to start with her first and say hello. Marisa, how you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing fantastic. I hope you guys are too. Welcome, everybody, to True Story Live.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry. Sorry. Got to turn on the volume.
That was her. Oh, my goodness. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks, everybody who watches, lurks, and catches that replay. Please share it out on your social media if you're so inclined. We're here every Sunday night, God willing, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you ever want to suggest a topic, we are open to suggestions. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to digging into this conversation about hope, something we all need right now. Thank you for being here.
Love it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yes, as Marisa said, we are interested in suggestions for topics. We've actually done that quite often. Someone has sent an email or a conversation that we hear on the broadcast, and we definitely follow up on that. So yes, please send your suggestions. You can suggest it in the description on any video. You can make suggestions in the chat. And as always, if you want to take the email route, you can send us an email. And I'll give that email out again at the end of the broadcast, but it's truestorylive.crips@gmail.com. And if you want to write something specifically for another panel member to read, all you have to do is indicate that in the subject line, and it's hands off for me. I'll be happy to forward that on to someone else if it's something more personal. But otherwise, we will all get a copy of it and read your suggestions. Okay, let's also hear from our friend Glenn from Australia, and let's see how he's doing over there, down under there, or whatever phrase you want to use. How are you doing, Glenn?
Pretty well. All good. You?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm doing really well. I've had a really nice weekend. Nothing stressful happened. No cars broke down. It's just been a good weekend. So I'm usually in a pretty good mood overall, but it's a little up from that even. I just have a wonderful wife and friend and roommate, and she makes life better, in my opinion. And so that's a good thing.
You bet. Okay.
We're glad you're here, Glenn. Thank you. And last but certainly not least, let's hear from the person I was just referring to, my roommate, friend, and my wife, Jennifer.
Hey guys, so great to be here. This is such a good topic, and I haven't actually read it. But I kind of like doing that. I kind of like hearing it the first time with Jason reading it. It's nice and fresh and lovely. So I'm excited because this is a really important topic, hope. Especially in this day and age.
I agree.
It's been a good weekend, and I'm grateful to be here with you lovely people here on the panel and in the chat.
Lovely. Okay. Again, tonight's topic is on hope, and we'll start that in just one more moment. But first, let's say hello to everyone so far that's in the chat. Jen, if you would like to do that.
Absolutely. I'll just scroll up. Andrew was the first in the chat. Hey, Andrew. And he's saying he's feeling kind of low on hope these days. We'll be praying for you, Andrew. I'm so sorry. Been there many a times. It's not the most fun thing. But we're praying for you. Pammy's in the chat. We've got Jamie, Grace in the chat. Celine is here. Nez, of course. I think that's it so far. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Yes, thank you, Jen. So when anyone pops in the chat, we will make sure and try to set time aside to speak to them. Generally, if we're in the middle of a thought or if someone is speaking, I will not interrupt and say hello to someone. But when I do see you, when there's a chance in between something, I definitely want to make people feel welcome, and we'll keep an eye on that. Also, as usual, if anyone wants to answer any of the questions or make any comments about what we're talking about, please feel free to do that. We welcome your comments, and just like suggestions for topics, we welcome anything. This is certainly not just about the four of us. We are here to have a dialogue with you, talk about these topics, answer these questions, and we want to hear your perspective. So please feel free to do that. Okay, here we go. All right. Again, Marisa wrote this topic on hope. And the song is Song of Hope by World Band. The link is in the description. When you get a chance, please go give that a listen. Tonight we talk about hope. We start off with some mighty powerful quotes. As always, I invite my co-panelists and the audience to ask their own questions and share their thoughts. I will intersperse my own thoughts, experiences, and questions along the way. First, a quote. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18 from the KJV. Also, quote, be hopeful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer. Romans 12:12, KJV. All right, another quote. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Emily Dickinson. Also, quote, let your hopes, not your hurts, shape your future. Robert H. Schuller. To live without hope is to cease to live. And that's by Dostoevsky. How do you say his first name?
Fyodar?
Yeah. Close enough. All right. Continuing with the quotes. Hope sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. Helen Keller. Hopeful thinking can get you out of your fear zone and into your appreciation zone. That one's from Martha Beck. When you say a situation or a person is hopeless, you are slamming the door in the face of God. Charles L. Allen. Impossible is just an opinion. That's from, of course, there's got to be Paulo Coelho quote in here.
You've been practicing.
That's who that comes from. Hope smiles from the threshold of the year to come, whispering, it will be happier. Alfred Lord Tennyson. As long as we have hope, we can have direction, the energy to move, and the map to move by. And that's by Lao Tzu. All right. Hope is the companion of power and mother of success. For whoso hopes strongly has within him the gift of miracles. Samuel Smiles. Quote, you are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. That's from the well-beloved writer C.S. Lewis. Quote, a leader is a dealer in hope. And that's from Napoleon Bonaparte. And the last of the quotes for now, when you're at the end of your rope, tie a knot and hold on. That's from former President Theodore Roosevelt. What is hope? It is the opposite of doubt. It is the kissing cousin of faith. It is most certainly something that keeps us hanging on when all seems lost. It keeps me praying for myself and others, even when the specific situations appear unchangeable. It motivates me to bless those who curse me and pray for those who despise me. Is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? I believe it is a gift from God on a very basic level. I believe it is a part of our spiritual side to have and maintain hope. I very much believe that we can also learn to have hope when we have lost it or never had it previously. Art, music, scripture, benevolent acts of people, all are things that instill and perpetuate the hope within me. What are the benefits of hope? For me, it would be peace, joy, faith, and patience. If we have hope, then we can much more easily stress less and enjoy the present and believe in good things ahead. One cannot harbor hope and depression at the same time. I struggle with depression. It is most important that I do not let it pull me under and maintain a steady focus on the good and beautiful things in this world. Scripture, prayer, and time spent with someone where there is mutual love does works for me. Are there any downfalls to hope? The only one I can see is having false hope or having hope in something that is just not going to be. For example, when a narcissist future fakes you, they promise things they never intend on helping become a reality. What time in your life were you ever without hope? I felt most without hope when toxic, abusive people in various stages in my life had me under their thumb, subject to their whims and manipulation. It is a prison one must fight to get out of, and I often thought I would never be free at my lowest points. What time in your life did you have your hope restored? I have many occasions where hope had been restored. One of my personal favorites is when one of my trolls stood up for me, and my daughter when the hate was off the charts. He ended up leaving the gang of trolls he once was a part of and told them off proper. Nothing short of a miracle. How important is hope in achieving a goal? I see it as a necessary mindset to have hope to survive this world, this life on classroom earth. In my opinion, hope is one of the direct connections we all have to God. It is a much needed lifeline, nurturing and supporting. What is your greatest hope? My greatest hope is that I make it to stand before God one day, and He is pleased with me, despite all the mistakes I made. Included in that hope is the hope that everyone I love, everyone I pray for, and everyone I miss will all be enjoying paradise together one day. As for my greatest hopes in this mortal life, I hope to do the best I can for my children, my friends, and my kitties. I hope to be and do all the good things that God created me to be and do. I hope to learn and grow from the hard parts and all that I failed in. And I hope to keep blessing others and for others to bless me. And ending with a quote that I could not fit in the description on YouTube, but here it is. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. And that's by Desmond Tutu. All right, fantastic. Wow, great write-up. Great write-up. I love it.
Thank you.
Love it, love it, love it. And it's on such a, as we've said, it's a very important topic. I kind of started the broadcast in talking about that, and I mentioned all the stuff going on in the world. Well, I feel like we've always needed hope. And I just am referring to recently just a lot of stuff going on. You know, it's political, it's social, it's just lots of lots of weird stuff. They're having forest fires in California. I mean, it seems like that's in the news quite a bit, but animals and forest and possibly people being displaced, and then all over the world, there's always something going on. So hope is an important thing, and I'm so glad that we're talking about this topic, especially now. We lost Jen, but she's back. Jen, can you just see if we can hear you okay?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Fantastic.
I'm not sure what's going on with your phone, but it's not like in StreamYard tonight.
It's not like in StreamYard. Well, that's
Nope.
unfortunate.
Yeah, that's all right, though. Yeah, I'm going to use
Okay.
my phone. Hopefully it'll work better.
Okay. Well, you sound good and strong, so
Good.
I'm glad. All right. So now we're going to get right into the questions. Let me just check the chat and make sure we didn't forget anyone. I do see that Debbie popped in. Debbie, hello. We're glad that you're here. And Rachel Menifee also popped in. Hello, Rachel. We're glad you're here as well. And then Salted Cedar, our friend. Lovely to see you as well. So I don't know who all has a channel, but I know Salted Cedar does have a channel. So if you get a chance to go check them out, please do. And also John Dons. I don't know if he has a channel.
And Bobby's here. Hi, Bobby.
I don't see Bobby, but I'll just take your word for it. Hello, Bobby. There he is. There they are, just tucked in between two people, both of which are Nez. Okay, sorry, I see it now. Welcome, Bobby. All right, I'm going to take a sip of my drink real quick, and then we're going to get going here. Just a moment. All right. So the first question is, what is hope? What is hope? So reading from Maurice's definition below the question, just really quickly, Marisa says, it is the opposite of doubt. It is kissing cousins of faith. It is most certainly something that keeps us hanging on when all seems lost. It keeps me praying for myself and others, even when the specific situations appear unchangeable. It motivates me to bless those who curse me and pray for those who despise me. Let's start with Jen. Jen, what do you think about hope? What is that? What is it to you? What is hope to you?
It reminds me of belief. Belief that things will get better. Belief of a lot of things. Gosh, it's kind of like that. Like when I think of the word of hope, I get this feeling in my chest. I don't know about anybody else, but I think it can be a feeling that you have inside of yourself where things might not be going okay in the current situation that you're in, but knowing that it'll get better.
Yeah.
That God will, for believers, God is here. He's with us. He sees all things. He feels what we feel. He knows what we're going through. I mean, there's even hope in that. So that's what it would be for me.
Okay, wonderful. All right, we'll go to Glenn next. Glenn, what is hope to you?
Just a mindset, an attitude, not particularly relevant. I know.
No, that's good.
I'm always the one who's going to take the other position.
Well, that's okay. That's one of the many reasons why you're here.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's not that. Not that important.
You're saying hope isn't that important?
Well, it just depends on the way. Well, you'll get into the write-up. It just depends on the way you see the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you can overblow all this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of hope is really going to be brought about by what you do. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can hope I win the lotto, but it's not going to happen if I don't have a ticket.
Right. Oh, so you're saying there's hope, there's personal responsibility, there's things you have to do within hope. You're not just.
Well, you just don't sit on your backside and say, I hope that tomato grows. and you know that the air's full of fruit flies, so you're going to go and put up the fruit fly container, aren't you? I mean, I know it sounds like a wet blanket, but I mean, you hope involves that you putting in some effort.
Well, sure.
That's what I mean. Just don't sit on your ass and think,
Right.
"Oh, I hope it's going to work out."
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And Marisa, I know that you put you kind of answered this question already, but based on what Jen or Glenn said, do you want to fill this out anymore as far as your opinion, what hope is?
Yes, let me just dry out that wet blanket just a little bit by saying that some people require hope before they can take action, because a lack of hope, speaking from personal experience, can withhold someone, and me included, from taking action. So there you go. That's about all I have to add there. Hi, Glenn. I love you.
That's a good point.
That's a great point. That's
And some
Oh,
people
go ahead.
would say, and I'm not saying I feel like I've lived both of these, having hope and then moving forward. I think there's been times I've moved forward without hope, and the moving forward created the hope,
Right.
or it met me there, along the way.
Yeah.
But it's been both for me.
Right. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, and this isn't just to pick on Marisa, we were talking about on her channel this idea that people disagree, and this is not a big thing to disagree on. She says it is the opposite of doubt. Now, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I have had hope and doubt. Experienced both of those at the same time. Had doubt, but still had hope. In my opinion, there are levels to hope. You can hope a little bit, you can hope a lot, and it depends. For me, it depends on the particular subject as to how much hope I will have. Glenn mentioned winning the lottery. Very rarely do we ever play the lottery, but he's absolutely right. You're not going to win the lottery if you don't play. In fact, that's one of the advertisements they use for it. Can't win if you don't play. That's what they say. And it's true. No one's going to hand you a winning lottery ticket that you didn't purchase. Generally, that's not going to happen. So I definitely agree with Glenn that there is some personal responsibility just in general. But sometimes there's nothing we can do about hope except to try to perpetuate it. So it's not a huge disagreement or anything. I just know that, speaking from my own personal experience, sometimes I have had both. But there's more questions to kind of fill that out a little bit. That's just what I'm going to say about it. I think it is something that is inside of all of us to be able to hope, but our personal experience sometimes seems to affect that. At least in my case, things have happened to cut away at my hope. Now, there are some things spiritually that I've had hope for a very, very long time. An example of one thing is salvation, my belief in God. I have had hope for a long time that all these things will be true, and I have belief in those things. I had hope for a long time that I would be married. I still have hope that I will be able to have children, have a family. I thought I'd totally pretty much given up all hope. And then I wasn't looking for, as you guys have heard me talk about, I wasn't looking for anyone. I wasn't looking for love, but I still was given that. And I wasn't sitting on my butt. I pursued, I took the hope that I still had left and pursued that relationship. So it went hand in hand with personal responsibility and doing something about it. But it was something that I was not aware was still there at all. It's only in retrospect, as I look back, there must have been a little bit. I don't feel like I was hopeless. It just wasn't something I was focused on. So I would add that question. We don't have to talk about it right at the moment, but can you have hope if you're unaware of it? Because in my case, I really wasn't aware of it, but in looking back at the story after the fact, there must have been some hope in there. I just didn't know it was there. So that's my take on that. Hello to Kelly and Dean, who popped in while we were talking. We're glad to see you. We're glad that you're here. Hope you're doing all right. Everyone who hasn't.
Believe. Sorry.
Oh yeah, believe. Yeah, no, don't be sorry. Yeah, he just popped in, and yeah, believe. We're glad that you're here. Hello, hello, hello. You guys are awesome. I'm glad that you guys decided to stop in and visit with us tonight. Okay, so we all answered the first question. Anyone have anything to say before we continue? Any rebuttals to anything anyone said? Okay, great. Next question. Is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? Okay, 2 questions in one. Is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? We're going to go the opposite direction, and I'll go first. Is hope something we have naturally? As I said a few minutes ago, I feel like hope is internal. And sometimes I think that we're not aware of how much hope until something comes up. That's just the way I feel about it. I feel we can train ourselves to hope, and that's by giving into it. I like that Marisa was talking in the above, what is hope, in her description. She says, when the specific situations appear unchangeable. I've been through many situations where that was the case. Didn't seem like I could do anything about it in my own power. It wasn't a situation where I could do anything but, sit and allow it to happen to me. Sometimes there are things that we can't do anything about. We can definitely choose how we're going to deal with the situation. That's always a choice. But like in trying to find a job, for instance, I can put out 30, 40 applications or resumes. I'm not going to be able to make someone hire me. That's a choice someone else makes. So there is some involvement in that. I can't stop the war in the Ukraine. Nothing I can do about it. I mean, I can go stand out with the sign that says, hey, let's quit this, if that's what I wanted to do, but it's not going to make any difference. So there are situations I believe that we have no power to change. It does, as Marisa said, appear unchangeable, but that doesn't mean that we don't have hope. So to recap, I believe hope is internal. I believe that we have hope somewhere in us, whether we're aware of it or not. And if we even have a little bit of hope, I believe that we can, I don't know if it's train ourselves, though. Being a believer in God, I believe the Holy Spirit helps us with hope. If I were an atheist or I didn't believe there was a God, then I wouldn't even be thinking about whether it was the Holy Spirit. I would say that we can build hope. It's not always alone. It's not always in our own power. I think if we're surrounded by people, they can help us build our hope. It's always better to have a community or a network of people that believe in you, and that makes it easier to make it through. Just my opinion. All right, we'll go to, I believe, Marisa. What do you think about this one? Is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? And again, I know you answered a lot of these questions, most of the questions, and I read that in the write-up. But so when I ask you the question, if there's anything you want to add to it other than what you've written, or if you want to use what you've written.
I just want to add that I really believe that we all start out with basic hope.
Yeah.
But I think that can get broken down along the way with life experience, with toxic people, with horrendous situations, health issues, car accidents, you name it, of the terrible things that happen that can all chip away at our hope, if not take it away altogether. depending on the situation.
Wow.
But I also believe that hope can be restored. And
Love
I
it.
believe you have to allow that. If
Yeah.
you're going to be staunch and stubborn and just not allow it, then don't be surprised if you don't ever have any hope. There's got to be some compromise somewhere. You either allow for the goodness of hope to come in or you don't, the way I see it. So that's all I would
Lovely.
add to that.
Lovely. So just as a reminder, Marisa said in the write-up, I believe it is a gift from God on a very basic level. I believe it is part of our spiritual side to have and maintain hope. I very much believe that we can also learn to have hope when we have lost it or never had it previously. And then lastly, she says, art, music, scripture, benevolent acts of people are all things that instill and perpetuate the hope within me. Beautiful. And I agree with you 100%, Marisa. So I agree that we start out with hope. I remember being a kid, I was just so hopeful about everything. I just wanted everyone to be my friend, and I was excited about what we might do that day, where we're going to go, what new thing I was going to learn. I mean, you start out like a sponge, just amazed by this new world that you're getting a chance to see. And I know that there are children that are born into really bad situations, but I still think that they have that hope internal, because they haven't been through it yet. So even born into a bad situation, a kid can still play, a kid can still imagine. I think that's the case. Marisa, one of the things you said that I completely agree with, because I've experienced it, is this idea of life chipping away at the hope that we have. So if there's any hope in the beginning, which I believe there is, this world has a way of robbing you of that if you let it. And children especially, I believe. And then as we become adults, as you've heard me say many times, I believe it's our responsibility. We can't continue to blame life or other people for eroding our hope. I've spent some time doing that, and it didn't help me get rid of it. It didn't help me overcome it. What helped me overcome it was deciding that I didn't want to live like that anymore and doing the things necessary. And fortunately, I had a few important people in my life that helped me with that. I didn't do it alone. So I'm glad that I wasn't alone, but I'm sure there are people out there that feel like they are alone and no one's there to aid them in getting it back. So hopefully that's one of the benefits of you guys being here, is that you have, at least in an online community, you have people that want to be supportive and help you if you're in that place. Want to say hello to Janet, who popped in while we're talking. We love Janet. We're glad that you're here. And Janet says, I was listening to the last one posted earlier today. When this came on, all the important info that people need to live in this day of increasing narcissism foretold in 2 Timothy 3. Thank you, Janet. And I believe Janet's referring to a video on our other channel, Out of the Dark, that was posted really, really early this morning. We've been working on it for a while, and I finally got it on. Just having some trouble with my computer, so it took a very long time, but we got it posted. So I will make sure.
Can we please have a link? I'm sorry. Can we please have a link for Out of the Dark? I still don't have it.
Yeah, I can send it
Please
to you.
and thank you. I'm sorry about the interruption.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you. It's an important thing. I want people to have the link for sure, because it's a hot button topic, narcissism, and a lot of people are having to deal with it. And so, just briefly, Out of the Dark is really an offshoot of True Story Live, in that we felt the need to do that because there were a lot of people that commented in the chat on TSL, and we didn't want to just have TSL be all about narcissism. So we created the channel in order to fill that gap. And because there's a lot of people that have stories that they want to share, it's just a matter of finding them. Right now, we only have a few videos on the channel, but we're going to continue asking for people that are willing to share their story of narcissistic abuse. So that's the plug. I'm going to move on from that. But thank you, Janet, for commenting, and we're glad that you're here. And sorry about your allergies. I have struggled with allergies, but they seem to have gotten better as I've gotten older instead of worse. Okay, Glenn, is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? What's your perspective?
In order to answer this question, Coco,
Hey,
trying to
Coco.
jump on me. He's back.
He's back.
He knows
Coco.
it's extortion time during True Story Live. Sundays at 8 p.m. Yeah, okay. I'm going to answer this one by initially replacing the word hope with intuition. So I'm going to say, Is intuition something we have naturally? Yes. Do we have to train ourselves to hope? No. I think hope is embodied within intuition, essentially, although I don't really feel comfortable with the word hope. But I would think that a lot of this so-called hope, in inverted commas, comes intrinsically. For me, within that, I don't sort of segregate hope out into something in isolation. So I say trust your intuition, and within that is hope is embodied. There you go.
Wow. Okay. So I understand. I mean, there's a lot of words we use on this broadcast that you don't particularly appreciate, but
No, it's not appreciate. Just I don't find relevant or not applicable to me in the sense that they're expressed.
Gotcha. So you're substituting the word hope for intuition.
I'm saying hope is embodied within intuition.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Jen, last but not least, certainly, is hope something we have naturally, or do we have to train ourselves to hope? What do you think?
I think it's something that we're born with. I think as we grow older, there's things that can happen to each of us that sort of maybe chip away at it, or maybe just make us think that hope might be silly or hopeless. Having hope is hopeless.
Right.
So I
Right.
think when we get to that point in life, and sometimes it can start earlier or later for people, where they start experiencing the difficulties of life. Yeah, that you kind of have to train yourself. I actually do like Glenn's answer about it being a mindset. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Along what I had shared earlier about what I think it is. So yeah, I think some people maybe come across it more easily than others, and maybe it does, sort of go back to what they've experienced in life. I think life can really chew up our hope. And so yeah, I think sometimes we need to sort of, for lack of a better phrase, pull ourselves up by our hope bootstraps. And just remember hope, and kind of grasp onto it. So that's my answer.
Okay. Thank you,
Hold
Jen.
on, I just want to say, Glenn, I really don't see where intuition and hope are even close to being the same thing. But okay, that's just me. Just saying, I disagree with that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it a little bit. Glenn, do you want to respond to Maurice's comment? Or her not
Yeah.
No, I'm happy for Marisa just to give her opinion.
Okay, great. No problem. All right. I want to read Andrew's comment real quick. Andrew said, I have lost hope for my marriage, but continue to hope in Christ. Probably shouldn't say, but I'm in it for my son, and he's not even my own son. Well, thank you for being so transparent. I'm sorry you're in that situation, Andrew. I definitely know where you're coming from. I went through a divorce, and at the time I had thought it was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. There's no children involved, fortunately, at least in my case, but it was still very, very difficult, and difficult even if the marriage is unhealthy, it's still a loss. It's still something I had to grieve. So we'll definitely be praying, Andrew, and I'm glad that you're here, because at least I think it always helps to, kind of talk through things and focus on something different. Even if you're mentioning it, you're still around other people, a lot of whom have experienced similar things.
Yeah. And I think even in that, there's some hope, because when you feel alone and like you're the only one that's going through something, I mean, it is happening to you, Andrew, none of us, your particular situation, but being in the presence of other people that have gone through similar things hopefully gives you hope.
Exactly. This is that idea of community. We talked about this a little bit on Neslever's channel last night, talking about community. And I've studied this in school, and it's a very interesting topic to me, the idea of community and how much it has eroded. But community can be whatever you want it to be. It can be actual people in your neighborhood, if that still exists where you are, or your apartment complex or neighborhoods, and it can be online, as it is for a lot of people. A lot of people that are very far apart, they can't meet in person for coffee, but they can come in an online situation. There's still, in my opinion, nothing better than face-to-face contact for community. But when we don't have that, then we have to take what we can get. So a lot of times online is the only option for that for a lot of people. Janet says, David said to himself, "Why so downcast, O my soul? Put your hope in God." So it is good to talk to yourself when hope slips away. Thank you, Janet. And this is a point I bring up when people talk against depression. They say, well, if you're a believer, you shouldn't be depressed. It's one of the most ridiculous things I hear, quote unquote, believers say. It's almost as if they've never read the Bible in some cases. And there are several people, and I always use this term when I call heavy hitters of Scripture. And what I mean by that is they were something in them, or something God did with them, made them a heavy hitter. Why is it not some dude named Bill that has a chapter written or is referred to the struggles of Bill? No. So David, as Janet brings up, he was pretty upbeat most of the time, but he has some really, in my opinion, dark verses, times of struggle for him, where he pours his soul out to God and talks about how upset and downcast he is. And this is what Janet has highlighted. Now, the thing I like about David is that even when he's being downcast, he always ends up praising God. Always. I think it's, for believers, that's exactly what we should be doing. It's okay to share your depression with God. I mean, he already knows, but that's not the point. The point is a relationship. And if it is a relationship, we talk to the people we're in relationship with, even if they're aware of what's going on with us. There's something about getting it out, in my opinion, that helps. It helps if you're downcast to share it with someone. And so that's what David is doing. So thank you, Janet, for sharing that. Yeah. Elijah, just really quickly, Elijah, which in more recent Bible translation, they're calling him Elias for some reason, and I'm not entirely sure why they changed the name. Maybe they thought they got the translation wrong before. But Elias is Elijah. It's the same person that they're referring to. And I've talked about this on this broadcast before, but he just had this victory handed to him by God, of which he played a part. He had to be obedient and do the things God was telling him to do. He defeats these hundreds of Baal worshipers, and God brings down fire from heaven and sucks up all the water in the altar, and he has this huge victory. And he hears that Jezebel is going to kill him. And so rather than saying, well, I just had this huge victory and standing on that, he got really, really depressed to the point of asking God to take his life. He said, what's the point of me living? You just go ahead and kill me. And God's response to him wasn't, oh, well, you're just being ridiculous. No Christian should be depressed or be downcast. No, he gave him food, water, and rest. He ministered to him. So that's the pattern. That's the example that we have from Scripture. So when a believer or anyone is depressed, those are the important elements I believe that they need: food, water, and rest. Something to drink, something to eat, and some rest. And supporting them. That's my opinion on that. Okay. Did everyone answer this question? I believe that we did. Okay, next one. What are the benefits of hope? And I'll read Maurice's first. She says in the write-up, for me, it would be peace, joy, faith, patience. These are all, by the way, fruits of the Spirit. She continues, if we have hope, then we can much more easily stress less and enjoy the present and believe in good things ahead. One cannot harbor hope and depression at the same time. I struggle with depression. It is most important that I do not let it pull me under and maintain a steady focus on the good and beautiful things in this world. Scripture, prayer, and time spent with someone where there's mutual love works for me. Okay, so I'm not going to go first this time. So let's hear from Jen first on this. Jen, what do you feel like? You've heard what Marisa said, and I'm going to ask her to fill that in more in just a moment. But what are the benefits of hope to you?
The benefits of hope. For me, it helps me continue forward.
Ooh.
It helps me wake up in the morning. It helps me, I dealt with depression years ago. It's been a long time since I've dealt with it. But it was really hard to get up in the morning. It was really hard. I was tired all the time. I really was in a place where it wasn't that I was completely out of hope, but it sure had dwindled to a low degree.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my gosh, this existence just sucks.
Mhm.
And I just didn't see any end to it. It
Right.
just, which felt hopeless to me.
Mhm.
Now I still had my relationship with God, and I knew He was there with me in it. And I never got to a place where I questioned Him. I knew He was doing something kind of like behind the scenes. I just couldn't see it.
Sure.
Because He's a loving God. But there were times where I was like, if I could see it a little bit, just a peek, like that would be really helpful.
Right.
And wait, what was the question again? Because I completely got sidetracked.
That's okay. What are the benefits of hope?
Benefits of hope. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Sometimes I start rambling and I'm like, whoa, what was the question?
You're not rambling. I know what you mean, but you're not rambling.
Yeah. So, it keeps you, it really does, at least for me, it kept me moving forward, even though things to a large degree seemed hopeless. It kept me from giving up, to be honest. There were times I didn't get to the point where I was completely considering suicide,
Yeah.
but I definitely thought a lot about, I just wish God would take me out, or
Mhm.
it'd just be so much easier if I just died. Like, and there were times I felt like that would be my only escape from just the
Sure.
horrible place I was in.
Sure.
So, yeah, hope, even in its minuscule form, really kept me moving forward when I just didn't see any out or any light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So that was what it was for me.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you for your
Yeah.
quote-unquote rambling comments that actually went somewhere. Lovely.
Thanks.
Just real quick, I want to say hello to the Nut House. And by the way, I am so sorry. I did find your text this morning. My phone was turned off. We were part of a stream, and Jen had my phone. I'm not blaming her at all, but the phone died, and so I didn't get your message until this morning. So I definitely would have joined your broadcast. So please try me again. I do apologize, but I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I had just told him to let me know when he's doing another live stream, and I would love to be a part of it. And then he sent me a message, and I did not get it. So that's totally my fault. But welcome. We're glad that you're here. And
hello to Tony's Coffee House. I just wanted to say hi real quick.
Hey, Tony.
We love
Glad you're
Tony.
here.
We love Tony's Coffee House. Welcome. And let's see. I thought there was someone else. Oh, just real quick. Rachel clarified for me that Elias is Greek and Elijah is Hebrew. So thank you for clearing that up. So that explains it. So it can be either or. So if the translation is going by the Hebrew.
That's helpful because I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I was reading something recently and I was like, did they change the names? What's going on?
Right. Thank you, Rachel. I did not know that. So thank you for clearing that up. So welcome, Tony's Coffee House. And Tony was there last night for our broadcast. It was Maurice's broadcast, not mine. I'm just a guest. Jen and I were guests. And it was a wonderful time. And you can listen to that broadcast if you go to Nez Lever's channel. So please do. But Tony was there last night, and we had a wonderful conversation. And Jen and Marisa did some amazing art. And I loved being a part of that. So definitely check that out. Alrighty. So what are the benefits of hope? Let's go to Marisa next on this one. I read what you said in the write-up, but let's fill that in a little bit if you'd like to, Marisa. What are the benefits of hope?
For me, it's really what has pulled me out of states of depression and has also served as a motivation to not just move forward out of bad situations and bad relationships, but also to take positive action to do things that I've always wanted to do, or I feel like I'm supposed to do, good positive things, whether it's artwork or music or doing the shows here with you. I have to have hope for that motivation.
Right.
That's how I feel about that.
Okay, perfect. I'll go next, and we'll hear from Glenn last on this one. So again, I'm not trying to just pick on Marisa. She says in the write-up, and I agree with this part, one cannot harbor hope and depression at the same time. The way I look at that is the word harbor, if you're focusing on either hope or depression a lot more than the other. But again, it's not even an issue I have with what Marisa thinks. It's just that I feel like I have experienced both. Depression, been depressed, but I was not hopeless. So having said that, I believe there are levels to hope. And I'm not going to skip ahead because there's a question when we get to that. I'll say more about that. But as far as the benefits of hope, I like what Marisa says. It's peace, joy, faith, and patience. You mentioned. These are fruits, and there are a lot of people that think that we produce the fruits: peace, joy, faith, patience. So, we can produce those things. I don't agree with that. They're described as fruits of the Holy Spirit. So they are given to us. Now, the part that we play is, I think it was Marisa that said earlier, allowing it. Might have been Jen. I'm sorry if I'm mischaracterizing who was saying it, but one of you was saying that we have to allow it, and I agree with that. I believe that we can block these things from entering into our life. If we're focusing on the depression or whatever the feeling is, the down feeling that we have, and we're not doing things to try to make it better, just like what Glenn was saying, doing things to move us in the right direction. That is required. It just is. Could God or a friend or a wife or husband try to restore our hope? Sure they can. But whatever someone else does, if we're not willing to get out of bed, if we're not willing to talk to someone about what we're going through, if we're not willing to read a book that might help us, or join a group, or be part of a community, if we just want to sit in our depression, which I have seen people do. My ex-wife did. She would complain about it all the time, but yet would do nothing about it. It was very hard to watch. And of course, nothing ever changed. So there are steps that a person needs to take, in my opinion. If they're feeling feeling depression or feeling down, there are practical things that you can do. I'm not saying that you can automatically change how you feel. Feelings are feelings. You feel them for a reason. You can't, well, I'm sure people would disagree with this. Some people would disagree with this. Like they would say, oh, just be happy. Well, it's never worked for me. I've tried. If I'm not happy, parents or some adult would say, oh gosh, just be happy, for crying out loud. I that's never worked. I can't just be happy. I'm either happy or I'm not happy. I can do things that might help me be happy. In the same way, I can do things that might help me be hopeful. So, on top of what Marisa said, joy, faith, patience, and peace, benefits of the hope are endless. With everything, as I mentioned, going on in the world or in people's lives. Andrew mentioned, troubles with his wife. I mean, I would certainly understand, and I have been there, where it feels like there isn't any hope, and maybe that particular situation will not be resolved by reconciliation. I know that God is a God of reconciliation, but you mentioned in the chat that this is a narcissistic person. And I don't see that most narcissistic people change. And that's because they don't do what's necessary. They're not introspective enough, most of them, to look at themselves and say, hey, people are really reacting negatively to me as a person and the things that I do. Maybe I need to change something. They're self-focused to the point where they can't see the damage they're doing to other people. So, again, I'm open to people disagreeing with that, but I know one person. Okay, I'm just say this really quickly. There is a channel on YouTube with, I can't remember the name, maybe Jen will remember, but he admits to being a full-blown narcissist, and he teaches people on narcissism.
Was this Sam?
That's HG Tudor. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Right.
No, it's not.
H.G.
He
Tudor.
is one, but there's also Sam Valken, I think. Valknen, or
I think that's right, Jen.
the guy with the glasses.
Yes, I was picturing his face in my head. Yes, the guy with the glasses. So, and I've gotten a lot out of some of his videos, right? But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why is he doing this? Is he doing this for, his own self-absorption? Is he doing this? What's the real? Why would a narcissist try to help other people understand narcissism more? What benefit is it to him? And that's because any narcissist I've ever known, they only do things that benefit them in some way. There's something they get out of it. So anytime they do something nice for someone else, it's because they get something out of it. So I'm not saying I know what Sam's motivation is. I just am suspect. That's all I'm saying. But there are people out there. If there's one, there may be others who have seen themselves enough and they're saying something about their own narcissism. It can happen, but in general, they don't change. One of the biggest benefits of hope is it keeps you from, as Marisa was saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you're struggling with depression, she says, pull me under. Pull me under. Don't let it pull me under. That's the worst place someone can be, is under the depression, under the grief, under whatever it is. So if you can do anything, if hope, I believe, rises you above, it pulls you out from under whatever it is you're struggling with. So that's one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest benefits of hope is it keeps you from going under. And if you have any kind of hope and can capitalize on that, it can completely change your situation, whatever it might be. So that's what I have to say about that. All right, we'll go to Glenn. Glenn, what are the benefits of hope as you see them?
The benefits are exactly as everybody else seems to hear described, positive attitude and yada, yada, yada. It doesn't really sit that well with me. I've got to be consistent, haven't I? I just am more pragmatic about the whole deal. I don't find myself in a place of hopelessness or hopefulness. I just find myself in that comfortable place of do what I need to do. I don't need hope to do something, if that makes any sense. I'm not motivated by hope. I'm just motivated by what needs to be done. It keeps calm. It's calm. It's not, it's not stressful for me to be like that. But I can certainly understand, looking at chat and listening to you guys, how that it can be extremely beneficial to some people to be like that and have something to hang on to.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you,
if
Glenn.
you want to explore that further, you be my guest.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just explore it in this way. Janet says Glenn is an animal, LOL. So I think that clears it up. No,
Well, I'm not a plant.
Right. No doubt. What I've observed, Glenn, and you can disagree, please disagree if I'm not right about this, but you're a pretty practical, logical person. Would you agree with that assessment?
I would say an intuitive person in some respects. Big picture things intuitive, small picture things logical.
Okay. And I don't see you as being unemotional at all. I mean, I have seen you express some emotion in the time that we've known each other.
I'm very emotional. But I come across on True Story Live as unemotional, but that's not the real person.
Right. So what you're saying falls in line, with the way you are on TSL, but I hear you saying that in reading other people's comments and listening to what other people say, you can understand how it might be beneficial for someone else. But for you, hope itself, you're not clinging to the benefits that hope can bring you. You're being practical and logical about whatever the situation might be. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. If hope doesn't play as much of a part in your life as does someone else's, doesn't make you wrong or bad. It just is a different perspective.
I'm just saying I don't need it. I don't need it to motivate me.
Right.
What I need to motivate me is that something needs to be done, and I'll do it.
Right. A man of action.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'm just making the point that it's not bad, or it's just the way that you see yourself as being a man of action. You would rather do something about a situation rather than use hope as a way to pull you out of anything. You act.
Correct. I don't like the thought of sitting in a situation and just constantly whinging about it. I've got two choices. I can be a whinger or I can do something. I prefer to do something.
Gotcha. Well, our friend Believe agrees with you. He says, I agree with Glenn. Hope doesn't motivate, it sustains. Interesting point. Thank you. That's Believe's opinion. And Tony's Coffee House says, ain't hope the goal? Of said things, you hope something will get better if you do. Thank you, Tony's Coffee House.
See, I can't go with that one. I just think it's going to go where it's going to go. It's not my place to try to anticipate the universe. My job is just to put in.
Yeah. Okay. Jen says, I never looked at hope being a motivator, but I guess it is. I see it as a companion helping us along. Yeah, Jen, I tend to agree more with that. Hope is a companion. I never looked at it as a motivator either. I didn't look at my situation and say, well, if I had more hope, it would help me get out of this. When I was answering the above question, I was just saying that a good thing, in my opinion, about hope is that it helps you from going under. It
like a life raft.
Yeah. Not a motivator necessarily, but
a vehicle of some sort.
Right. I would rather have hope than being hopeless, for sure. But fortunately, and I'll talk more about that when it comes time, but I've only one time felt like I was close to hopelessness. Frankly, I can't imagine what being actually truly being hopeless would feel like. I feel like I've been close to that, but to be completely, totally without any shred, any degree of hope, I imagine that would be a horrible thing to go through. So there's that. Okay. Let's see. Did we all answer that? I think Glenn was last on that one. What are the benefits of hope? I believe. All right. Next one up is Marisa asks, are there any downfalls to hope? And Marisa says, the only thing I can see is having false hope or having hope in something that just is not going to be. For example, when a narcissist future fakes you, they promise things that they never intend on helping become a reality. That might be one of the greatest sentences in this write-up, or paragraphs in this write-up. And with an example of a narcissist that future fakes you. For those of you that don't know what future faking is, basically a narcissist, or even people that aren't narcissists, can future fake. Anyone can. But they do it for the purpose of getting what they want in the present, promising something in the future that never takes place. That's basically what it is. So they for instance, a person at your job, your boss might say, hey, if you get all the TES reports done, by the end of the day, then I won't make you come in and work over the weekend. That's a couple things that all roll into one there. He won't make you come into work over the weekend, but it's a promise of something. And then when the weekend comes, he makes you come into work, even if you got the paperwork done. It's a poor example, but it's an example of future faking. Generally, it happens, I think, more in marriages where the narcissistic spouse will promise you a family, and then nothing ever happens. And then when you get close to something, he just changes it. Well, we'll wait till we're further along. So the promises never come, and it seems like the future faking lines up over and over and over again. So, are there any downfalls to hope? I like what Marisa says. She says having false hope, but let me ask Marisa, what do you feel is false hope? Could you, and I'm not being simplistic, I just want to hear your example of what false hope is.
Well, I gave the example of what narcissists can do with future faking.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's the fault of the person who has the hope necessarily. But I think if we are putting hopes on something that, again, from like a narcissist, toxic person is promising things that, they're just never going to come through with. That's false hope, and that's that's a downside. I'm not saying that shame on you if you've ever been there.
No, I wasn't.
But it happens.
Yeah.
And I of all the things that I've been through, that's really the only kind of negative connotation attached to the word hope that I can think of.
Yeah.
Everything else outside of dealing with a narcissist, there's nothing wrong with hope.
Right.
I believe it's very essential. I believe it's instilled in each of us, and we either have it carry us through our life. Sometimes we lose it. Sometimes it gets damaged, and sometimes we get it back.
Yeah.
But I really don't have any other examples of a negative side of having hope. Having hope in something or someone like a narcissist who's not going to do what they say they're going to do. That's about the only thing I can think of at this particular time. In my walk as a Christian, with God, all things are possible. So there really isn't any other room to doubt.
Right.
So.
Yeah, thank you, Marisa. Appreciate you doing that. So and Marisa uses the example of a narcissist future faking, which really is the perfect example for me to answer what are the downfalls of hope. Hoping in the wrong thing or the wrong person, that's what false hope is to me. The hope is false not because we have it, but because the person we're relying on outside of ourselves is never going to deliver what they promise they're going to deliver. And that, like I said, that can be a narcissist, or just any person can do that to us if they're a toxic person. And there are a lot of them out there. So they promise something, it's never going to happen. And we put all our hope in that instead of other things. Hope should be in people that love and care about you. Certainly hope in God. If you're a believer, God will never fail you. He may not give you the answer you want when you want it, but it's not a failure. In my opinion, you don't ever have false hope if you're hoping in God. It may seem like that to people who don't believe God exists. For sure, they must look at us like we're
bonkers.
Yeah, we have eyes on the top of our head or whatever. I can't think of a better example at the moment, but it must seem crazy. I just imagine it seems crazy to people that believe there's no God. For all these people, millions and millions of people throughout the world that believe in something that you can't see. They have hope in something, hope in a lot of things related to a God that we believe exists and promises things to us, to help us, to be there for us, to love us, and we don't see it. It's not a person. God is not a person we can wrap our arms around, physically. But having said that, Janet said, I'm trying to find it. Janet said in the chat, I like the song. She's talking about music. Wrap me in your arms. He knows my name. We still believe. I believe that this might be a separate topic, so I'll just talk about it briefly. I tell Jen all the time, I believe that we're God's hands and feet. And although Jen can't be hugged physically by God, I believe that when I hug her, I'm hugging her as if it were God. Not saying I'm God. I'm saying that
God's hugging me through you.
Right. Thank you. It's way better than what I said.
Hands and feet.
Yep. And I feel the same thing when she hugs me. So God is using our arms, our legs, our feet, our whole body to love the other person. And our belief is that, of course, someday we will get to hug God. We'll get to wrap our arms around Jesus. But in this world, for this present time, it has to be through other people. So to me, I agree with Marisa. The downfall of hope is false hope. I think that was a really good point. I wasn't asking you, Marisa, I don't think you think this, but I wasn't asking you to, put you on the spot or anything. I just wanted to know your version, what you thought about false hope. Because to me, the only false hope is hoping in something or someone that is never going to deliver. And your example about a narcissist future faking, it's a bigger example of putting the trust in the wrong thing. And it doesn't have to be a person. You can put it into a situation rather than putting it in things that aren't false hope, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I answered. Let's hear from Jen. Jen, are there any downfalls to hope? What do you think?
The only one I can think of is false hope.
Yeah.
The stuff I'm going like with my parents and the things I've been through with my ex, hoping in other people sometimes I think can be disappointing. Now my hope is really truly fixed on God. But yeah, like you guys were talking about before with the goalposts being moved and, people spouting promises, words, but it's not backed up with action. That can be destructive and just disappointing and sad and all kinds of negative things.
Yeah.
So I'd say false hope, waiting for something when people's actions have pretty much proven to you that that's not going to come, but you keep hanging on the words.
Yeah.
I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I appreciate that. Just while we're talking, Believe says, I'm not going to lie. If I ever meet Glenn in person somehow, I want to give him a big hug and a kiss on the forehead. And then he says, I mean that in the most masculine way, LOL. So there you go, Glenn. Somewhere out there, you have a potential hug and forehead kiss from our friend Believe.
Well, I'll take it.
All right, there you go. See, I knew you'd react that way. Okay, great. All right, Marisa, I know I already questioned you about the false hope thing, but you want to fill your answer in any more than you already have? Are there any downfalls to hope? I just want to give you the opportunity. If you feel like you've already answered and don't have anything else to add, that's totally fine.
I think I've pretty much covered it. Um, even if you've had false hope, again, that's not I don't believe that's always the fault of the person who had that hope. We can be fooled
Right.
and we can be played.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody who's ever had false hope, particularly in a narcissistic, abusive situation, there shouldn't be any guilt or shame involved there. That was just part of the things that happen with a narcissist.
Right. Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, Marisa. Bobby says hope can, by the way, Bobby is not a he. When I was saying hello to Bobby, I said he accidentally. I do know that she is not a he. So I apologize in the chat, but I just want to say Bobby's not a he. There we go. Bobby says hope can damage when you put your hopes on the wrong person / thing. Someone who abuses you over and over, and you still have hope they will change. It's damaging. Now, I shared that real quick, so I just want to focus before I get to Glenn. This is exactly what we're referring to. I used the word narcissist, and Marisa used the word narcissist, but this is classified let me put it back up there. In my opinion, this is classified perfectly, Bobby. Someone who abuses you over and over again, you still have hope they will change. It's damaging. I've experienced this. I've experienced this with members of my own family, that I have this hope that they will change. Now, I don't necessarily consider it false hope, because I believe while a person still breathes, while they still have blood pumping through their veins, there's a chance, especially if they claim to be a Christian, there's a chance that there will be a change at some point. And sometimes in certain people, I see little changes over time. Sometimes just that as they get older, they don't have the same strength to be a jerk anymore. I've seen that happen too. So you could attribute it, if you're a kind person, you can attribute their change to, oh, these are positive things that are happening in a person's life. Sometimes it's not. But while that person still lives and breathes, I believe there's always a chance that they can change. Now, I know that sounds paradoxical to what I said. If it's a narcissist, they don't change. But there's a part of me that believes that there's still a chance somehow. There's still a chance. Maybe God will bring something into their life that will totally turn them around and change their whole perspective. That's a possibility. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility. So thank you, Bobby, for your comment. I agree completely with what you had to say. And then I believe Jen's talking to Andrew. Let's see. Jen says, Andrew, this was my story. It's okay to scrolled up on me. It's okay. If it's okay to say, talking with Glenn was incredibly helpful. An answer to prayer. I encourage anyone to reach out to him to help walk through things. Yeah. And Glenn has made it very clear. I mean, sometimes, in my opinion, it seems too clear. I mean, and that's just from my perspective. You don't need to say all the time, but he wants people to know that, he's surrounded by people that believe, and he doesn't believe, and that's totally okay. Obviously, if it were a problem, he wouldn't be here and so involved with TSL as he is. But even despite that he doesn't believe, we have what I would consider a very good relationship, and I'm okay that he doesn't believe, and he's okay that we believe. So that works out. It's not always the case. As we've talked about many times, a lot of people that disagree, they can't have a relationship. It's all about whatever the disagreement is. So I prefaced this by saying that Glenn has helped a lot of people, and he's talked to people that are believers. And I saw he mentioned to Andrew the human side. You've got the God stuff covered, he said. I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me. But he said, if you want to talk about the human side, and gave his email. Andrew, I know we're only just getting to know each other online and whatnot. But if that's something you're interested in, I believe there is great value in doing that. Anybody that wants to talk to Glenn, I find his advice on things from his perspective to be very healing and helpful. And I would say even especially for a believer, because a believer is, focused on the Bible and focused on God. Those are all wonderful, great things. I'm not saying you shouldn't be focused on that, but sometimes it's helpful to have another person's perspective on what you're going through, so you can see all the sides from it. And I believe, whether Glenn is aware of this or not, I believe God has used him, or he could say, well, the universe has used him. That's okay for him, I would guess. The universe, God, has used him to help other people go through some very tough times. So I just want to put that out there. There's the disclaimer there. And not just for Andrew, but for anyone. He puts his email, he makes himself available to talk to people. And I think it's been successful. Certainly successful. Jen shared that it was very helpful for her. I've had a few situations in life where it had definitely helped to talk to Glenn. We haven't done the multiple emails back and forth, because I usually just say what's going on, and he might give me a 5-minute opinion, and I'll either take it or not. But it has been helpful to me, especially where it deals with people in my family and trying to see them clearly. It's been very helpful to hear his perspective on things. Okay, so appreciate you bearing with me while I went through that. Okay. Glenn says hourly rates are 0. LOL. Right. Glenn, are there any downfalls to hope in your opinion, sir?
Not many. The only thing I could think of is if someone really puts themselves in a place of delusion. And when, like, say my dad, I did his palliative care, if I had built up expectations of hope falsely and mate, he'll be right, he'll do that. And then when he passed on, which was inevitable, it could take someone down to the pits.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just face up, hope has to be realistic, I think. That's
Sure.
really what I'm saying. But in general terms, I'd say, no, it's not really downfalls, just
Sure.
maybe a couple of circumstances.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate you. All right. Did everyone answer that? Are there any downfalls to hope? I believe we did. Next question. What time in your life were you ever without hope? Now, I'm dying to answer this, but I'll let someone else go first. But I'll read Marissa's in the write-up what she said. Marissa says, I feel most without hope when toxic, abusive people in various stages of my life had me under their thumb, subject to their whims and manipulation. It is a prison one must fight to get out of, and I often thought I would never be free at my lowest points. Okay, that's the perfect way to start in answering this question. What time in your life were you ever without hope? We'll go backwards order. I know Glenn just answered, but we'll start with him, and I want to hear if he ever had a time, because the way he's talking about, he doesn't use hope as a motivator, certainly. So I'm curious to know that if you ever have felt this way. What time in your life were you ever without hope, Glenn? Is that something that happened or doesn't happen?
Never. I can say I've been sad. I've been depressed. I've been gone through all those human emotions. It can be distressing.
Yeah.
But never, ever without hope. Not a chance. I mean, there's too much to live for.
Yeah.
Life is too short. You got to make the most of it. So
Sure.
not much point wallowing in a hole. Get out, get up.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And short and sweet and right to the point. What about you, Jen, chuckling in the background? What time in your life were you ever without hope?
There were a few times in my last marriage that I think I've shared this on the show before, but I just got so beat down that I would go into the bathroom and just get on my face and cry into a towel. Now I did get up and go, continue continue on, but in those moments when you just feel like it is hopeless and it's just the shit storm's just never ending. There's just fighting all the time and tension and anxiety and fear and just all of this stuff kind of slamming into you all the time. It just never seemed at the time, it just never seemed to stop. It was always there waiting to pounce, and even when things seemed a little bit okay, I was just waiting for the next tidal wave to hit. um I'd say that definitely was probably my lowest point of my life. um Now I still had hope peeking its head out when that was happening, and that's usually what stopped me from crying, and then I was
Yeah,
able to get up and move on.
sure.
Really and truly knowing and feeling the presence of God in those moments, and knowing that I wasn't alone, that He was there and that He saw me even at that lowest point. Um, and again, just this innate knowing in like the depths of my bones
hmm
that He was working behind the scenes and that He was doing something. He hadn't left me. It would have been really easy for me to lose my faith. It would have been really easy for me to have felt abandoned by God in the midst of those feelings and just the circumstance and the situations. But I didn't. It was still there. Um, so it didn't completely leave me, which was I'm very grateful for.
Yeah,
But it was still a low point. The
right.
hope tank was running on almost empty.
Hope tank was
um,
fumes.
yeah, I was like, okay, it's still there. So yeah, for me, that was my place, and it happened a lot. You know what I mean? It didn't just happen
Yeah,
one time. It happened. I would stuff feelings and act like I was okay and tell people I was fine, and
yeah,
um, but it came in like waves. You know when you have an upset stomach and it like the stomach cramps come in waves, and then like it like dissipates and you're like, phew, and then here it comes.
yeah,
You're like, no.
yeah,
That's that's kind of how it was. It was like in waves, especially when you're stuffing feelings,
yeah.
that it gets to the point where they fill up to the top and then they bust out. So yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
And thank you for being transparent. It's hard to share that, I think,
Yeah.
sometimes, but I think it's a lot easier to share something after the fact when you're not going through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very true.
Thank you,
Yeah, you're welcome.
Marisa. I'm going to save myself for last on this one because I want to share a story, and so I know you. Again, I know you already answered in the write up, but what time in your life were you ever without hope?
I would say that when I was in the narcissistic abusive relationship with my son's father,
Yeah,
I think that's the lowest I've gotten. One of the lowest, not the lowest, but one, makes the top 10. I was by myself. I didn't, my son wasn't a baby, toddler. And as things just got worse, I had no support from anybody. I
yeah,
wasn't a strong Christian then. I didn't have the faith in God to even believe that He could help me out of it. I still had hope, but yeah, I was running on fumes on the hope tank myself. Um, it was just horrible. I felt trapped. I had to work almost militarily to plan my escape
right.
and go into a shelter with my then young son.
Wow.
It took me almost a year
Yeah,
to save up money here and there that he didn't know about,
yeah,
to make plans for this and plans for that. But I knew that it was the right thing to do. and with no family around me because it was just me. That's all I could do. And like Glenn says, you just got to take action. You can sit there or you can take action. Well, I took action,
Yeah.
but it took me getting to that low point to finally go, well, you want this for the rest of your life, or do you want to get
Right.
yourself and your son out of this?
Wow.
In this particular situation, all of us in the same house just wasn't working. And things got better once we separated, and he, we were able to do shared parenting with Jason, with our son. That's my son's name too, Jason.
Sure.
But yeah, but to get out of that particular situation, which was not good. It
Wow.
took the hope that this is what's best for my son, this is what's best for me, and I believe that even though I wasn't a strong believer then, I still believed God was going to help me
Sure.
do what I needed to do to make those changes. But yeah, it took sinking pretty low, and I stuck with him for several years. So that's what it took for me.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for just like Jen did, sharing. It's not easy for everyone to share these moments, and certainly a story like that. And I'm sorry that happened to you, but I know the outcome, and I know that you're no longer in that horrible, toxic sludge of abusive treatment, and you're out of it. So definitely praise God, and thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Before I tell my story, I just want to use what Marisa said. She said, I feel most without hope when toxic, abusive people in various stages in my life had me under their thumb. I just want to say that I understand what that feels like. I have experienced that myself. This particular story, I don't think that my ex is a full-blown narcissist. I think she was definitely put herself in a victim mentality. She definitely had anxiety and depression. But this story doesn't have much to do with her. It really doesn't. But I've only one time I could not feel the hope anymore. And I was working. I was still living in the same place, sleeping on an air mattress in the living room. I'd been kicked out of the marital bed, and I had already received the separation letter where she was saying that God was leading her to get a divorce and whatnot. And we were both still in a lease, and we had decided that we were going to try to live out the lease, which was the stupidest thing, one of the stupidest things I've ever done. If I had a time machine and had to go back and relive that again, the minute I got the separation letter, she was in Atlanta at the time, and I would have been gone before she came home. I just would have just been gone. I wish I'd done that. But anyway, so I'm working at a soul-sucking sales job, and I was making decent money. She's not working, and she's got depression, anxiety, and spent most of our we weren't even married 3 years. I knew her for 6 years, but we were almost married 3 years. So at the tail end of this 3-year process, I'm still working this job, and I had a really, really rough day, and I had a panic attack at work, which I don't have. I know there are a lot of people that suffer from anxiety attacks. My ex-wife had them pretty frequently, but I'd never experienced one up until that point, and I didn't know what was happening. And I just was out of breath. And the room that I was in at work, it looked like the dolly zoom that you see in the older movies, especially like Vertigo. It looked like the background was getting further away and then coming back in closer. It was really a surreal experience. And I left. I couldn't deal with the answering the phones and trying to do sales when I was having this panic attack. So I left work and got out to my Jeep. And I didn't want to go back to the apartment and just be there. I knew she wasn't home at the time, but I still just didn't want to be in that place. So I decided I would go see a movie, because that's what I do if I'm depressed. It used to really be helpful. I could focus on someone else's make-believe story for a couple of hours in the dark, and it would usually make me feel better, believe it or not. So that was my plan. And I'm driving on the way to the movie theater in my Jeep, and I was coming close to a bridge. And some of you have heard the story before, but it is the only time that I felt such a strong absence of hope, and it just washed over me. And I didn't hear an audible voice, but in my head, I heard, "Why don't you just drive into the bridge?" And I never had thoughts like that before. I mean, I've thought about suicide in the context of, I wonder why people do this, but I never seriously considered it up until this point. But the way I was feeling, the darkness and the depression, the grief, and then the soul-sucking job that I was still working at, definitely feeling, not from my ex necessarily, but from people at work, abusive, toxic people. I was just a number to them, someone to make money for them. And I just felt I was being used and abused by the whole situation. And I know as a believer that that was a satanic attack. And people throw that around sometimes as, well, it's a satanic attack. Well, it was. But seriously, I had my hands on the wheel, and I felt a compulsion to just, turn off a little to the right and run into the bridge. And I was almost as amazed that I was even thinking about this as I was about, how it felt. I just haven't felt anything before or since. And I would say that if I didn't have any hope, if there was no more hope left, then I could have followed through with that. And then knowing how my story turns out, it would have been one of the most meaningless deaths that ever existed. I mean, I would have given up all these good things that would have come later, especially my relationship that I have now. But at that time, I couldn't see any of that. I couldn't see that there was anything good coming. And obviously, I'm talking to you now, so you know that I didn't do that. I guess I could have done it and been really badly injured, and that's the end of the story. But I didn't do it. And I passed the bridge, and it started to abate. I'm not saying that I was all like rose cups and rose cups, buttercups and rose petals, and everything was great after that. But I felt as close as I've ever felt to not only feeling hopeless, but feeling like the best option, as Jen was saying, was to just end it. The idea is that in death, there's no suffering. And certainly for a believer, I don't buy into this whole Catholic idea that if you kill yourself, you're going to hell. I don't believe that. I believe if a person is saved, even if they take their own life, they're a child of God. And I'm not saying that we should take our own lives or anything like that. But I wasn't afraid of hell. I wasn't afraid of eternal torment. But it still is taking a gift that God gave you and throwing it away. And certainly that's what I would have been doing. But that's the closest, sorry for the long story, but that's the closest I've ever felt to feeling hopeless. I've had plenty of situations where my hope was low, like Jen said, on fumes. But nothing where it was this low, where I couldn't feel it at all. I didn't feel like there was any other option for about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's just a dark feeling. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, how that felt. Fortunately, that situation ended, and I quit that job. But things were hard for a while. And there were times that I prayed, not in that same desperation, but afterwards, I did the same thing Elijah did, or Elias, and said, God, if you're going to take me now, it'd be a good time. I didn't see what was coming. I couldn't I couldn't grasp things being better. And the particular grief I was feeling from having a marriage dissolve like that, it wasn't even the loss of her personally. It was that I had prayed to be married for a very long time, and I botched it up by choosing the wrong person, I believe. I didn't wait for who God had for me at the time, and I carried that regret around with me for a long time. But it was a very difficult time. So that's my long story about the one time that I felt I couldn't feel the hope. So
Thanks
there
for
we go.
sharing, Jason.
Oh, thank you. Okay, everyone answered that question, I believe. Okay, we'll move on to more hopeful topics here. What time in your life did you have your hope restored? Well, there we go. I knew it was coming. Let's restore the hope. Since I just told this really, transparent and dark moment of my life, I would like to go first on this one. My hope has been restored lots of times. Now, again, it wasn't totally ever gone. That moment was the closest I've ever been. But I believe that I've experienced the restoration of hope many times, and I can't think of a better restoration of hope than when I met Jen. I have shared before that I wasn't looking for a relationship or anything like that. And I've described it to her that there was a little ember of hope / love for relationships and marriage and things like that. And when we were just friends, I presented this scenario where metaphorically it's like she went down into my basement where my hope was stored, and it was just a fireplace with just a little ember burning, and she blew on the ember and created this huge fire. And that's the biggest and best time that I know that my hope was restored. Not in life itself, but it did change that for me. It did restore my enjoyment of life to a point where every day it increases. But my hope in marriage, my hope in love, my hope in relationship, because I was pretty sequestered and isolated after my divorce. I couldn't really rely on my family. I had friends, of course, that all hated my ex, and they gave me all kinds of advice. I should do this and do that and get her back and all that, which fortunately I did not fall through with anything like that. But no one that really tried to understand and empathize with what I was going through and give me that kind of support. I just didn't have it. But I did have God. And so when he restored my hope in giving me a person that I love and that loves me, it permanently restored my hope. I don't know. I can't think of any situation that would ever happen where I would feel hopeless again. God forbid something happened to Jen, but even if something did, my hope is forever restored, in my opinion. I just I'm in a completely different place than I ever have been. Now, one thing I want to make clear, my hope just isn't in her. It's not in another person, but she was a catalyst for my hope being restored. So I'll just leave it there. What about you, Jen? Why don't you go next, since you're part of the topic of what I just shared? What time in your life did you have your hope restored?
Oh gosh. So I prayed quite a lot before I exited my first marriage. I really, really wanted to know what God wanted me to do.
Sure.
I didn't want to make a mistake.
Sure.
I didn't want to jump ship if he had restoration in store because
Right.
I can't see around the corner of life. But I
Right.
truly believed and still believe that God does. So he did give me a green light, which was hard, but at the same time, confirmation. Okay, I can leave. And so just in the process of leaving and having the strength to leave, because we were married 14 years, and I, grew up in the church where just hearing over and over again, God hates divorce, and abuse not ever being talked about within my family or, in the church that I was with. I pretty much had to it was just me and God pretty much.
Yeah.
I even had a friend, she was a customer of mine with my store, and she was a lawyer. And I explained to her, and I didn't want to go into the gory details of what my ex had been doing to me,
Right.
to a customer of ours, because we had a antique store together. So I just gave her kind of like the little bit of information. And she straight up told me, she was like, just so you know, you don't have any biblical grounds for a divorce.
Wow.
And I right on the back end of that comment, I said, I respectfully disagree.
Yeah.
Because I knew what I had been going through. And I have my own relationship with God that's personal, and I sought him, spiritually till my knuckles were raw, and felt that I had gotten an answer from him. And so just the very fact that I left, it was kind of strange because I had so much peace and joy after leaving, like the day after, that I'm sure it might have looked strange to some people, like, but part of it was just, it was the hope being restored. It was, I actually left. I'm free. I am out of this. I don't have to go back. Um, I was living with my parents for a year, so they gave me refuge, place to go after I left. And there was many times during the relationship that I would seek refuge at my parents just to kind of get away from the crazy. But there was it was difficult because even when I'd be there visiting, like my mom, I knew I had to go back. Like every single time I was there, there was just this weight of knowing I have to go back. And so being in a place where, I was there and knowing I don't have to go back, like this is it. It was wonderful. So,
Yeah.
there's many more reasons, many other
Sure.
things that happened, like you and I's relationship that brought back hope, but that was a big one.
Yeah.
Just the very act of leaving and making the choice for myself, like finding my own self-worth and self-love to say and truly believe I have a choice to stay or go. I don't have to endure this anymore. I'm worth so much more than this, than being treated like this.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge part of the hope too. Caring about myself enough to leave.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's
Thank you, Jen. Thank you.
yeah.
I just want to briefly comment on that person, the quote unquote friend that made the comment, you don't have any biblical grounds for divorce. I don't blame her. It's a pretty typical view, even from so-called believers, because, we hear pastors saying, God hates divorce. Well, yeah, he does hate divorce, but it wouldn't even be something that would be allowed if God didn't understand. And for those of you that don't know, this is not a Hebrew lesson for anyone, but during that period of time, what was happening was that people were deciding they didn't want to be married to their wife, and they were trumping up charges to have them stoned, and they were dying. They were being killed by their husband or people in the camp. So obviously, he had Moses put an end to it, and they said, let's stop killing our wives. If you don't want to be married to your wife, then you have to give her a divorce. You have to give her a writ of divorce. And so that's how that came about. But under no circumstances would I ever believe that if a person is going through abuse, but there isn't cheating, specifically, there's not adultery, that the person has no biblical grounds for divorce. It is, people can argue with me on this for sure. But in my opinion, if you're being abused, they're not holding up their end of holy matrimony, of a godly marriage. And it falls in the same category to me as abandonment, the person leaving and not coming back. It's emotional, spiritual, and sometimes physical abandonment abuse is, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to throw that in there. Let's hear from Marisa. What time in your life did you have your hope restored, Marisa?
The one I shared in the write-up
Yeah.
was when a little over a year ago, I think, there was my usual dedicated band of trolls had recruited some other trolls to help out with the trolling. And this one lady had been recruited, and she was a famous, she still is an infamous troll who's, hated on everybody in my part of YouTube. Anyway, so she had been recruited to target me, and eventually my daughter was brought up in their conversation. They were making allegations, assuming that I was abusing my daughter. They made comments to the effect of, and I'll share those screenshots with you privately sometime too. It's amazing.
Okay. Well, I believe you, but yeah, I'd like to see that.
I ended up going to the FBI to report some of this stuff that was going on. It was crazy. But they were some people were making comments and talking about how I had my daughter drugged and strapped down. I mean, just nonsense. Now, for those who don't know, my daughter is 8 years old. She was a year younger at the time. She has autism, and she's not being mistreated in any way, shape, or form. But this is what the extent that these people were going to try and get me riled up to make me react. And there's many narcissists in that particular group of trolls, and so they're looking for a reaction, certainly.
Sure.
But not just me and many of my supporters, but there were people on their side of the fence who would comment and support some of them. And even one of the trolls, part of that gang at that time, who were going, whoa, this is, no, this is wrong. You want to hate on me, whatever. It's social media, say whatever you're going to say, whatever.
Right.
But it doesn't make it right. It's still hateful and abusive. But targeting me is one thing. But to even bring up my daughter, my special needs daughter, that's just beyond evil, inappropriate. Should have never gone there.
Agreed.
And the one of the trolls who used to be part of that gang at the time, he, I'll leave his name out of it, but he stood up to them and said, "Hey, this is ridiculous."
Yeah.
Just to paraphrase, you guys are retarded, and this is, just basically paraphrasing what he said. You guys need to stop, and I'm out. So thank God for the one who stood up against the others and stood up for me and my daughter. That was, like I said, nothing short of a miracle. Boy, you better believe that I had hope restored, not just in humanity, but in the power of prayer.
Yeah.
And that was a very powerful, probably one of my favorite moments from my YouTube experience, was seeing that thing happen in that way.
Wow.
So, yeah, it still makes me smile. So,
yeah, wonderful,
awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marisa, for sharing that. Okay, all that's left is for Glenn to answer. And if you answered the above question, which you did, that you've never been without hope, how can hope then be restored? So obviously answer any way you like, Glenn, but I thought if you're not able to answer the question in the traditional way, I know that you could answer from the perspective of someone that has had their hope taken away or felt hopeless. What would you think would be a way for that person to have their hope restored? If you want to answer, just however you wanted to go from there. But what time in your life did you have your hope restored, Glenn?
I didn't. I think it was, look, if I try just to make some sense of everything, I would say that it was sort of, you could say it was inferred or implied I went through a huge life-changing couple of years where I just became a different person. When that happened, everything just changed totally. So you could say, as a result, like I'm being consistent, as a result of getting off my backside and doing some hard yards, everything turned around. And then I just sort of looked at the world and thought, how long's this been going on? I've
Wow.
missed this for 45 years, but it's here. I'll take it. So you could say that's restoration in a sense,
Sure.
but it's not. It's not having ever lost hope. It's more. I think the point is, I had no idea that there was a different world if you made some big changes in your life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Like profound changes in the way that
Yeah.
I found not only was I changed, was people's attitudes towards me changed.
Right.
So obviously I was different.
Sure.
So that was hopeful. It's hope.
Yeah.
I've got to say, amazing.
Yeah. Well,
So-
something you said there, you changed. I'm pretty much of the opinion that you can't change anyone else. I'm pretty sure about that, but we can change ourselves. So we're not expecting the other person to do any changing. Is it a benefit if you're in a relationship and the other person changes too? Yes, but you can't, unfortunately. Well, maybe it's not unfortunate. I think it's great that you don't have to rely on other people. You work on you. That's a bite-sized goal. a little bit at a time. You work on yourself, and you're not waiting for someone else that may never change to change. So there we go. Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Hello to Wisconsin, Greg, our friend from Wisconsin. Thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you. And also our friend from New Zealand, Nathan Gruber. I love that guy. Glad that you're here. And hope that you're doing well, my friend. Good to see you. Just to let everyone know, we've pretty much been in double digits the whole time. Thank you to everyone that has taken the time to stop in the chat. And of course, if you're listening to playback, we're not discounting you. I just want to let everyone know that we would love to see you guys in the chat. We know that there's a lot of people that listen to the broadcast after the fact, and that's great. We appreciate you listening. But we definitely want it to be more about community and having these conversations. So just consider joining us in the chat sometime. That's all I'm saying. Okay, 2 more questions, and then we'll say goodnight here. Next one is, how important is hope in achieving a goal? Marisa says, I see it as a necessary mindset to have hope to survive this world, this life on classroom earth. In my opinion, hope is one of the direct connections we all have to God. It is a much needed lifeline, nurturing and supportive. Marisa, I'd like to start with you. And I just read what you had on the write-up. Do you want to fill that in a little bit? How important is hope in achieving a goal to you?
You caught me. I just took a bite of my Stromboli. Please pardon me.
No, I can come back to you. No, Stromboli's
No, I'm
awesome.
good.
Okay.
Excuse me.
No.
How important is hope when it comes to achieving a goal? If you, as you read through the quotes, many of them touched on that. And for me personally, I've got to have that support of having hope in a project, in whatever I'm praying for, goals I set for myself. I believe it's perfectly natural. I think it's essential, and I think it's something that I personally need to keep moving forward. Yes, there's action. You can just take action, but me personally, I need that hope of knowing that I'm going in the right direction, of knowing that I'm heading towards something that's going to be good for me, good for my children, good for other people. I need that structure to work within.
Yeah.
So it is, for me, it's very essential.
Gotcha. Thank you, Marisa. Jen, what do you think? How important is hope in achieving a goal?
I think it's very important. I think it's intrinsically woven in there. Because if you
Woven,
think about it, if there's no hope, I can't imagine somebody doing something without hope. Like when
right?
they're trying to achieve something, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Sure. It'd just be perfunctory if they were trying to achieve something and they didn't have any hope. It'd just be, maybe like a robot or something. I don't know, performing tasks. And but Glenn might disagree with that since he doesn't engage in the hope thing. Jen, did you have anything more to say, or I'll move on to Glenn?
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay, perfect, Glenn. So how do you answer this one? How important is hope in achieving a goal?
Depends on the individual.
Right.
For me, I don't think. Look, I'm being totally consistent. I just don't
Yeah.
see this in terms of hope. If I have a goal to do something, I'm not going to hope I'm going to go do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope is irrelevant.
Yeah. Gotcha. Well, I
Thank
like
you.
the way you phrased it. Yeah. Thank you, Glenn. I like the way you phrased it. It depends on the person. And you're right. It depends on it. There are people out there, obviously you recognize and acknowledge that there are people out there that do have hope, that do operate in hope, but you're just not one of them. That's totally fine. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Jen answered, Glenn answered, Marisa, did you answer? I'm sorry, Marisa, did you answer this one?
Yep, still eating my Stromboli. Yes, I did.
Yeah, Stromboli. Yeah, you were the first one, so it's just me then.
If I want to ask something of Glenn.
Sure.
Glenn, you're older than I am. Can you honestly say, in all your life, you've never had hope in anything, for anything, or to guide you in moving towards a goal? I would even challenge you as far as to say, well, when Cripps's mother came to visit you in Australia, can you honestly sit here and say you didn't have hope that her plane would land safely, or that you would, have a good visit? That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that hope is something you need, you personally, to do something. That's part of it. But Glenn, really? No hope in you whatsoever for anything, for any reason ever? Come on now. Let's hear it.
Wow. There it
Look,
is.
that's a fair question. Look, I'd say at a certain level, I'd say yeah, for sure, but not overt. It's just I'm not quantifying things in terms of I need to hope, but I mean I hope if I back a racehorse it wins, but it's not it's the wrong word. It's not hope. It's just it is. Look, it is what it is. It will happen, and the answer to your question is yeah, sure, but on a low level. Look, we all have a wish that things work out or go well or whatever, but it's not something that I'm hanging my hat on or anything like that. I think that's quite a difference.
Yeah.
Like the way
So
I
at least you can say that you've at least had hope at some point for some reason, for something.
Of course, but as I said,
okay, well, you kind of come off like hope's irrelevant, and I hadn't had any of it. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, I'm answering it now in the position I'm in at this point in time.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
in general terms, it's what I said is true.
Right.
But I'm not saying it's totally excluded from anything.
Right.
That don't probably come across to make much sense.
I get it.
You get it. It's just not something I think about. Am I hopeful? It's irrelevant in that sense. It may be intrinsically there at some subconscious level I don't even think about.
Right.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you,
cool.
Glenn.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you for your backup question, Marisa.
Yeah, it was a good question.
Yeah, it was a good question. Okay. Well, I agree with what everyone else said. How important is hope in achieving a goal? I like what Jen said the most, though. It's I think it's the underpinning of a person's life. Hoping for things is extremely important. I know for believers, believers aren't the only ones that have hope. I mean, as Marisa just pointed out, people hope for a number of things. They hope that, if they're trying to sell a house, they're hoping that their house will sell. If they're hoping to buy a new house, they're hoping they're able to find a house, and it goes through all the rigmarole that a person has to go through in that process. I hope that in the next 10 months, Jen and I are able to find cheaper, affordable housing, because the rent here keeps going up every time we renew the lease, but there's nowhere else to go right now without living in a really, really poor area. By poor, I mean violent, potentially violent, and roach infested. So there are plenty of things that people can hope for. And it is something that I consider to be important. I've had hopes. Here's the thing, and this is where I tie what we've been saying on our end about hope and what Glenn has been saying. So fortunately, this has been resolved, but I have hoped for a long time that I would eventually do something with other talents and abilities that I believe that I have. I've been hoping. I haven't been doing anything about it. And I don't know what I was thinking. I don't think I felt like someone else is going to do it for me. I didn't feel like I was that delusional. But a person can have hope and not take any steps towards achieving a goal. So the hope's not useless, but it isn't accomplishing anything, just being hope in and of itself. So I very much agree with what Glenn said earlier on. There is some personal responsibility. That's my own words, not his necessarily, but saying that we have to do something about it. Hope is great, but if hope is just sitting there not doing anything, you're not trying to achieve your goals or accomplish anything. All it is hope. It doesn't spur you on all the time. It doesn't make you act. It certainly didn't for me. So there's that. All right. Let's see. Everyone answered that question. One more here, folks. Just real quick, I got called out by my friend from New Zealand. I said that I love that guy, and then he put in the chat, well, if you love me so much, then how come I haven't answered emails or responded to emails in a year or something? I put publicly, that he didn't do anything wrong, but I just want to apologize. And there's a similar thing with Believe. I guess Believe had sent some emails, and I responded at first, and then I got busy with other things and didn't respond. And I'll talk to a person on the phone for hours if they want to, or over Messenger or things like that. And I'm just not as much a typer, but I need to do better about responding to emails. So, Nathan, my apologies, and I will try to do better about that. My sister, when she gets upset at something, she wants the other person to say, to apologize and say, "I'll do better next time." So I'm saying that. So thank you for bringing it to everyone's attention, Nathan. A little sarcasm there, but you're definitely not wrong. So there that is. Last question: what is your greatest hope? We'll start with Jen on this one. Jen, what is? Oh, okay.
No, I'll go first. There's so many. I have to pick one. Gosh. Right now, I hope that Jesus returns soon.
Okay. There you go.
No, I'll add one to that. I have a hope in me to have a child with you, and we're older in years, and God can do anything. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not. God has just given us so much that if it doesn't happen, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
It's not like when I was younger where I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die if I don't have a child. Thank goodness, because I think that puts a lot of pressure on another little human being.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something I have a hope in. I hope that happens.
Right. Thank you. Well, I'll go next and say that I have the same hope. I feel like my belief is beyond hope. My belief in God and believing that Scripture has already been fulfilling itself. We see many instances where prophecies have already been fulfilled. One of the many reasons why I believe in the first place is that you can look at Scriptures written thousands of years ago and see that they actually took place. This is not a situation where someone came in and filled in the blanks after the fact. No, these are things that happen. So it's beyond hope. My belief in the Bible and believe in God. It's faith. I mean, hope and faith can go hand in hand, I suppose. I think that faith is more sure than hope. That's just my opinion. And it becomes something else when you have hope and faith for a long time. It becomes more sure. At least for me, that's what it feels like. But I don't know if we're going to have a family, but it is something we talk about often. It is part of our prayers. I'm not as concerned about the age thing. Of course, at my age, I would love to live long enough to, if we were to have children, to see them have grandchildren. That might be out of the realm of possibility, perhaps. But I know that Jen and I would be wonderful, doting parents that would want to raise a healthy children, and we would be able to use all the things that we didn't get and all the things we did get and decide which things work best. I mean, certainly no one's perfect, but this is something that I have a great hope for because I have the right partner. In my previous marriage, she said she wanted children, but I was too busy with taking care of her as a child because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was taking care of her child, and I knew that if we had children, I would be alone, that I'd be taking care of two people, one needfully so. I mean, you have to take care of a child. But the other one, I shouldn't have had to be responsible for someone that decides to be in bed all the time. I mean, periodically or whatever. But so yes, I agree with Jen. For me, greatest hope, other than biblical things that I already believe will happen, a little bit different than hope for me in those areas, but hope that I can have a family. What about you, Marisa? What is your greatest hope?
Well, like I said in my write-up, my spirituality is, my primary hope. I hope that Jesus doesn't give me the look, and that I, did okay using what I had to use, and despite all the bumps in the road and the mistakes along the way, I hope that he still, gives me an A for effort at least. I don't know. And of course, I hope that everybody that I love and pray for and that I miss will be able to enjoy eternity in the same place, enjoying peace and rest and happy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I continue to hope that while I'm here, that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing well for my children and for my kitties and for my channel, my artwork. Oh, and I hope that I continue to at least keep trying and hopefully succeeding in doing what I'm supposed to do here while I'm here.
Gotcha,
and I hope we continue to all be together here on True Story Live. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Marisa. Glenn's up last on this last question. What is your greatest hope, if there is one, Glenn?
That someone would come round to the house and cook me dinner.
Well, Glenn, if we lived anywhere near you, we could probably.
I'm working on it, Glenn. I'm working on it.
That was a bit facetious, but
sure,
it would be nice to sit down and have dinner once that someone cooked.
Sure.
So,
all right. Thank you. All right. We end with a quote. Hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. Desmond Tutu. And as I mentioned, not everyone was here at the time, but that was the one quote I could not fit in the description on YouTube. So that one's missing. But There it is. And we are at the end of a wonderful write-up. Wonderful, awesome, amazing, lots of great questions. This is a topic that I can really identify with, and it is something I believe that we need. It's definitely something that we should cling to, even when things are tough, difficult. And I agree with what Glenn said. Even though things are tough and difficult, there is personal responsibility. There are things that we can do as people, whatever our situation is, to help us get through that. But having only experienced that one time when I didn't feel like I had any hope at all, obviously there was some still there. I think that when people end their lives and they're just done, thinking about it is one thing, following through with it is, to me, the total absence of hope. And fortunately for me, I feel like I've always had some hope inside me. Even if it was fumes, there was still some hope. Otherwise, I may have made different choices. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, that you've got some hope left somewhere in there. If you can't find it or you can't feel it, do yourself a favor and do all of us, anyone that loves you, a favor and dig a little deeper. Do what you can within your own power to change your situation for the better. Easier said than done, I know, but we've all been there. We've all been in those difficult times. So your time, whatever your difficult time is, no one's taking anything away from you. Don't compare your situation to other people and say, well, and people have it worse than I do. Well, yeah, maybe so. We can always find someone that has it worse than we do, but that doesn't take away from how difficult your situation may be. There are people out there that care about you. There are strangers you have yet to meet that will become friends. There are communities, certainly here at TSL. I will do. I'm not concerned about Nathan, so it's a little bit different situation. But I will do better about responding to people that send emails. Of course, I always respond if it's something that needs to be addressed right away. So all of us are available if you want to talk, if you want to vent, if you just want to share something with us, then you will definitely get a response. So definitely reach out to us if you have that desire. All right. And we're going to say our goodnights, and I'll say goodnight first. This has been wonderful. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thank you to everyone listening to the playback. The best thing you can do if you get any benefit or you enjoy this broadcast at all is to share it out with your friends. Share the link if you would be so willing. And and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. That definitely helps the YouTube algorithm to know that someone at least appreciates the broadcast. And as Marisa was saying earlier, if you have a suggestion for TSL, have anything you want to talk about, or just general criticism, positive criticism, negative, whatever, please share that in the description. So thank you so much. Let's hear from Jen. Jen, say goodbye to the peoples. If you have any closing comments, please share them. And there you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know Annette is in the ER with her daughter Abby right now, and I asked her if she was okay if I said something.
Oh, no.
She's been having seizures, and she's just really been struggling for a while now.
Yeah.
With some autoimmune stuff, and it's just been
Wow.
getting worse and worse. So if you guys could just pray for her, that'd be wonderful.
Sure.
And she
Sure.
says hello, so I told her to keep me posted. But yeah, this was a wonderful write-up, Marisa. Beautifully written, wonderful quotes, and a great conversation. And of course, Glenn always makes it interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
This would be so boring if it was just a bunch of us that all agreed with each other.
That is true, actually. That is very true.
And
Thank you.
I've always appreciated Glenn helping me look at things from a different perspective. I
Yeah.
find that I get things out of that when I think about it. So it just stretches my brain. I've always appreciated that. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for the comments in the chat and just being a part of the discussion. And we will see y'all next week. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jen. Glenn, if you would say goodbye to the people, and if you have any closing comments, please share them.
I shall say good night, and I send my best to any person in a situation that they don't really wish to be in, and certainly to Annette and her daughter. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. All right. And Marisa, if you would like to close us off, if you have any closing comments, please share them and say goodbye to the peoples, please.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed doing this write-up, and I even liked tussling with Glenn over it. That was extra fun for me. He knows I like it.
Yeah.
But thank you, everyone, for coming. And one more quote that I didn't get to fit in. This is, get where I can see him in the dark here. What gives me the most hope every day is God's grace. Knowing that His grace is going to give me the strength for whatever I face. Knowing that nothing is a surprise to God. And that quote is from Rick Warren. So I think hope is pretty much tied to the spiritual part of our existence. And whether you're a Christian or not, you still have a spirit, and you still have spiritual things going on with you in your life, whether you acknowledge it or not. And I think the stronger your spiritual self is, I think the more prone you will be to having hope, harboring hope, expressing your hopes. I think I just think they're linked together. And never lose hope. And if you do, reach out, because there's plenty of us out here who can listen to you, talk with you, especially Glenn. Talk to Glenn. There's a suggestion for a new show right there. Talk to Glenn.
Talk to Glenn. Yeah.
We can all
Yeah,
share
I
our
think that should
stories.
be a new show on Glenn's channel. Little channel suggestion. Tell him if you want him to do that. But thank you all for being here. I really enjoyed this discussion, and thank you all for being a part of it. Please share this out on your social media if you are so inclined. Please check out the Art and Truther Chat stream I did last night with my guests Crips and Jen. It's kind of a regular Saturday thing, so it's a lot of fun. And please check out Crips' other channels, the Out of the Dark narcissistic abuse channel, dealing with that and surviving that, and the Dr. Sleep ASMR reading channel. It's a wonderful, wonderful channel. I highly recommend you sharing, subscribing, and checking it out. God willing, we'll see each other all again here real soon, hopefully next Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on True Story Live. Thank you so much. Thanks to my co-hosts, and I love you all. Jesus loves you, so do I. And have a great night and a great week. We'll see you next week.